Hey YouTube, I've moved things about a little bit for this. Trying to do a video today, and honestly, 20 attempts to try and talking about the best beginner guitar you can get. Like if you're thinking of learning to play the guitar from scratch, or which happens quite a lot. You know, you're buying it if you're the cool uncle or cool aunt, and you're buying it for a nephew or a niece for Christmas. I mean, I can understand that. I think a lot of people sort of see it as you know, if you're the cool uncle. I'm not. None of my brothers have kids, so but you know, if you're the cool uncle, and you can hear, you know, whatever wee Billy is sitting there and he's humming a, you know, a Stones song or a Guns N' Roses song or something. It's like pure. You're getting a guitar for Christmas. So what guitar would you buy? And after having a bit of a think about it, I was looking at last week. I did a video for a cheap rig, which was a Westfield Telecaster, and a wee 10 watt amp. Like, just as how cheap can you get something that you can play with? But and if you're looking at new guitars, one of my favourite ones, which you've seen if you look down in my videos, I did do a video review of a Squire Mustang Bullet, which I really like. It's a sort of navy or sort of purpley blue sort of mini guitar. I like that. They're about 110, 120 quid, something like that. I like that guitar. It might not be to everybody's taste though. Although that guitar would do fine for me, and you can play pretty much anything on any guitar. If you're giving it to wee Billy and he's a mad Metallica fan, he's not really going to want a Mustang, which is a bit more of a sort of jangly, Beatlesy, surfy type thing. You know, so it's like, it's not really the sort of thing. I mean, I can see how the Mustang doesn't appeal to a lot of people. It appeals to me. I like it because it's quite vintage and old looking and stuff like that. But if you're talking about not really knowing or not being 100% sure what it is you're after, and also you don't want to, the thing about the Mustang is because they're quite new, you can't really buy them second hand. So you are talking, you know, second hand maybe 90 quid, something like that, as opposed to 110 new. So you just buy a new one. The guitar, which I would recommend, because I can't really fault it apart from its looks, is the base model Yamaha. This is not the original colour. It was originally just black, and I've added an extra couple of switches which do funny stuff with the pickups. But that's not necessary. It's an ERG 012, I think it's called. And if you look on Gumtree or eBay, you will see lots of these very popular guitars. That's one of the reasons why I would put this as what I would recommend, because they're dead easy to get. And you know, there's a sort of standard. I think if you're lucky, you might be able to pick it up for 50 quid, probably a bit more than that, really. Especially if folk are throwing in a wee tiny amp and, you know, bag and strap and all these things. But this is what you should be aiming for. One of the reasons I like this is just for the general concept itself. Because it's a super strat, it's kind of got Gibson-y sound because it's got the humbucker pickups. So you get the two best sounds on a Les Paul, for example, are here. You get neck pickup, bridge pickup, and then because it's got a 5-way switch here and a pickup in the middle, you get the sort of best sounds out of a Strat as well. So without the fancy switches I've put in, you get neck humbucker for your deep blues solos, and then you get 3 Stratty sounds. So you get the sort of the two best sounds in a Strat are positions 2 and 4 basically, and then in the bridge position you get humbucker for full on rock AC/DC mode, and this does all of that in one guitar that is cheap, and because it's a Yamaha, build quality is fantastic. So provided, I mean, I'm not selling you everyone you buy, because I mean, they have made these for 20 odd years. I think it's even cheaper. It's a cheaper model than the Pacifica. Pacificas I can't fault either, apart from it's the look thing. I mean, for me this one was, because it was just black, it was a bit bland, so it had to be painted something to make it a bit more interesting. I'm actually going to sell this one. I just haven't done it yet because of COVID. Because I thought, what I'm saying, you know, how do you upgrade this guitar? And it's like a lot of guitars, you know, you got to change the tremolo system because it's terrible, or you got to change the pickups, or the tuners have to go. You need to, no. On this one, it just needed a silly paint job, and the switches are there just because I like messing about with it. This one actually has a new pickup system I designed, which is I called it, was it Pentabucker I called it. So it kind of runs, there's a one of the switches turns so you can get this pickup running into this pickup running into this pick, so you get all 5 coils working as one big massive muddy mess, which is could be useful, fun. Yeah, so part 1 of this video was basically me just telling you that this is the guitar that I would recommend starting with. Once you've been playing for a year and you know what you're doing, yes, you can think, right, maybe I now really want a Stratocaster because Dave Gilmour's my favourite, or you know, depending on what you're playing. I mean, this does play Dave Gilmour, no problem, you know, and it also plays Slash. Whereas on a Les Paul, you're sort of not really, you know, which is Slash's guitar, you're not really going to be Dave Gilmour, and if you're vice versa, if you're playing a Strat, you're not really wanting to play Slash. Whereas this kind of sits in the middle somewhere. I suppose you could argue that it's not as good a Les Paul as a Les Paul, and it's not as good a Strat as a Strat, but you know, just principle wise. So if you look at my videos, there is a video of me when I got this guitar before I painted it, and then there's another video after I painted it like this and put the extra switches in. It should sound the same in pretty much both of them, although I had set it up. That's another thing you've got to consider when you're buying second-hand guitars as well. Although I said, you know, you can pick up one of these for 50 quid. If you know somebody that plays the guitar, one of your pals or your dad or whatever, take them with you when you go and try it out, just to make sure there's not something blatantly wrong with it. Because I mean, okay, when it came out the factory at any point in the last 20 years, I'm sure it was wonderful, but it could have been sitting in a damp garage. It could have been played by an idiot. You know, you don't know how beat up it's been, how badly treated. So I'll definitely get some, if you know somebody who plays the guitar, to go along with you when you buy these things, or if you buy it new, I pretty much guarantee it'll play brilliantly at the box. I don't know how much these costing you. Yeah, so pretty much unrivaled, I think, if it's your first guitar. Also, the other thing I like about this as well is, though, if you, as I said, because it kind of does the Fender and the Gibson thing, I mean, if you've got this, you know, as I say, and you're mad into Dave Gilmour or whatever, so it's Strat is the one for you. It does all the Strat sounds, that's great. And then once you can learn to appreciate the difference of a more expensive guitar, I mean, that's the thing, it's like something like what's hanging on my wall there, like that, you know. Gloriously lovely and expensive guitar, and yes, if you didn't play the guitar, you could look at it and you can see that it's extremely fancy and nice. But playing it's not really going to sound it's not going to feel or sound any different if you've not been playing guitar for at least a few years. I mean, that was a bad example. It took me ages to learn enough, or to get confident enough to be worthy of playing something like that. You know, it's like it's too expensive. It shows up mistakes too easily. Whereas something like this just does the lot. Yeah, but I digressed a little bit there. So as I was saying, if you've got this, you're mad into Dave Gilmour and stuff, it does the 3 Dave Gilmour sounds, you're going to be able to play that fine. And then after a year or two, once you've sort of really got the guitar bug, you buy yourself your Stratocaster. I would imagine, I would, even after a couple of years, I would say don't go buying, you know, an £800 or £1,000 American Strat, but you know, buy a Squire or whatever. Just because I don't think you really appreciate it until you can play properly. I suppose is this a good analogy? I don't know. Like, say if you're driving around a car park in a Ferrari, I'm sure there's not really much point in having it because you can only drive at 10 mile an hour. You know, whereas driving about my Fiat Panda, it's actually easier because it's just, you know, that's fine. Whereas obviously go around Le Mans or something like that in the Panda, the Ferrari will lap it in 1 lap. But so different things for different things. And that was another digression. So my point was, like, so you're mad into Dave Gilmour, you bought yourself a Strat, and you've got your old guitar, but this old guitar still does the Gibson-y thing. So you will have, like, if you're mad into Dave Gilmour, but you do want to play some Guns N' Roses, I don't know why I chose Slash and Dave Gilmour as my 2 references, but there you go. So this will do the Guns N' Roses better than the Strat does, so you can keep this as your second guitar because it will do something different. And the same goes the other way. If you're playing this, you're mad into Slash, you're playing all the Guns N' Roses, you're going to be using the humbucker pickups, it's great. And then after a couple of years you buy yourself an Epiphone Les Paul, you can still keep this one, you've still got it, and this does things that the Les Paul doesn't do. This does the Stratty sounds. So all in all, this is the guitar you want. Now, the reason I'm doing this video is because I bought 3 practice amps off one of my pals the other day. I was thinking I'll do videos for them and sell them. Also a wee bit interested in how they work. Technology in guitars hasn't really moved at all. You know, it's like these guitars you see on the wall. I mean, okay, that's 80s. You know, I mean, they're pretty much from the 50s. There's not really anything in there in a guitar that's really done anything since the 50s. I mean, okay, slightly different shapes, and as I say, this one, you know, you would say this didn't really exist until the late 80s because it's got the humbucker and the single coil pickups, but the humbuckers are the ones you just got from the 50s pretty much, and the single coils are just the ones you got from the 50s pretty much as well. You know, that they'd be in a Fender, they'd be in a Gibson. So there's not really anything technological happened. They do occasionally try and do stuff. Actually, if I move the camera around a bit, you see my new Yamaha one, and see the white one. That's made of, it's like a from the future, like technology. It's got like a sort of hardwood top and a soft middle, and you know, it's like, and it never really did anything. It's not really that extreme, but that's what happens when they try and do something exciting. You know, the model lasts 3 years and then you don't get it anymore because people don't want that. They just want bog standard, the same as what everyone else is. I'll go back to where I was. Sort of back to where I was. Yes, so as I was saying, amps, big amps are sort of like that as well. If you're a vintage person like me, like say my favourite amp, the Sovtech there, that's basically just a sort of 70s Marshall. The one above it, the Laney, these are all valve, and okay, they're a bit modded, but it's basically I think it's a Fender Bassman amp that they're just kind of copies of, and that's kind of it. So there's not really much. I mean, you're still sitting there. There's nothing in that amp that you couldn't have. Oh, it does have an effects loop. Okay, maybe that counts as something. But I mean, I'm sure you could have put one of them into an old amp if you knew what you were doing. But I mean, there's nothing that's not been kicking about since the 60s or 70s. What has changed though is mini amps, because technology does move on. So if you notice things like multi-effects boards, they have come up since they came out in the 80s. They've vastly improved, and home recording machines, and even the smallness amp, you know, like not valves, solid state and digital has gone a long way. When I was starting playing, this is the sort of amp I would be that was in when I was learning to play like 20 years ago. This one's quite thin. They're normally twice as thick as this, but you'll see this amp. This was called a G10 by Rockburn, but you will see this amp by 1,000 different makes, all in a slightly different case, but the actual amplifier inside it's always the same. Whoever it was designed it did a good job. Here you go. This is how you make a small, cheap, but still sounds all right wee amp. So I think I did a video for that anyway. So as I said, the reason for this video is to try and offload some of these wee amps and just do a wee sort of comparison between them all. So I might have them all. I've had an awful lot more than I thought I did, if I'm honest. So if you've got your basic guitar, you've just bought, right, the aim is here to try and get yourself learning to play the guitar and sounding decent for 100 quid all in. You've bought your guitar, let's say 60 quid. Maybe let's just say you paid 60 quid for it. If you spend 80 quid on it, you know, you'll get one that's probably in really good condition or that's quite new. You don't really need an amp the first week you've got it. That's me. I would assume that you would buy a pick. So if you've got a pick, yeah, so you can still learn to play the guitar without an amp, basically. So that the important bit is decent guitar. To get an amp though, you need a lead. So I don't know. I'd be tempted to say a £5 for a lead, but maybe spend a wee bit more than that. Recommendations for a lead is get one that's got ends that you can unscrew. Not that you ever really need to be able to unscrew the ends of them, it's just that they're generally a bit more expensive to do it that way than to have like the moulded ones, which I don't have one lying about just now. You know, it's just like they're just a bit cheaper. I would recommend that you buy one if you've got the choice, get one a different colour as well, just to make things easier. You know, when you're sitting there with I've got a big massive spaghetti on the floor with different cables. So I would buy a red one, or a blue one, or green one, whatever colour your guitar is. Just something so it's a bit different from all the other ones, and you can trace your lead. Also good if you're going round to someone's house for a jam or having like something like that. You know that, oh, so which lead is it? It's yours, and it's like you're looking at them and trying to remember what the end piece was or what make it was, and it's like, no, mine's a yellow one, so you've got a yellow lead sorted, and that's really all you need. Is a guitar, a lead, and a wee amp. So it's how big a wee amp you go for. So I mean, I've ended up with a big pile of them here. This is the smallest one, I think. Well, the smallest one I've got I can't actually find because it's so small. I've got like a wee I'm calling it orange, not the make orange. It's I think it's a Dean Markley. It's someone's painted orange, not me at some point. And it clips onto your belt. And then the next thing up is something like this, which is still runs on a 9-volt battery. This is a CB Sky, but again, you can get it with lots of different makes. My pal's got an Epiphone one, which is like a tweed cover on it, which actually looks really cool. Used it at Download last year. So you on something like this, you've got off, on, and a drive, volume, and a tone. Really, all you need in a headphone socket. Yes, if you're sitting, in your bedroom, you just want to be a bit louder than that. Kind of does a trick. I will run through some of these. I'll set them up, maybe 3 at a time and do videos. So small amp. Next one up. These are the cheapy ones. This is when you're trying to get it under 100 quid. So I'm thinking something like that. I would sell it for a tenner, something like that. The thing I like about this is though, because it's got the 9-volt battery in it, it's got the playing outdoors thing going on. So you could maybe not busk, but go to a picnic or sitting around having a blaze with your pals. It's loud enough to have a big sing song and still be aggressive and get a bit of distortion. It does have a drive thing on it, but to be honest, it doesn't. These things don't go loud without distorting. They've kind of got one sound. It's not a brilliant sound, but it's enough, especially if you're playing camping or something like that. Right, then you go along a wee bit and you get, this is another one of mine. This is one I'm not going to sell. This is a Black Star Fly 3, which is also a battery operatable one. This is kind of like, these are not that cheap. These are maybe about 60 quid, something like that. But it's starting to get into a little bit more complicated. Obviously you still get the guitar input. This one's got a separate overdrive thing. Maybe it's not that complicated actually. It's just, the thing that's most impressive about this amp is it sounds amazing for what size it is. It's not, it's like, you can say, oh, the Black Star Fly 3, you won't see a bad review about it, it's great, but just by the size of it, it's never going to sound like a Marshall Stack. That's a bass amp. Okay, that, actually if you look in below, I'm running that through 3x12 speakers. It's like, and if you compare the size of a 3x12, a 12-inch speaker to the actual, that's the whole amp is a quarter of the size of a speaker, so it ends up pretty small, but very impressive. And this sounds amazing at very low volumes. So say you're playing along at the volume I'm talking about just now, this would still sound pretty good at that volume, whereas any of these bigger amps, when you're at this whispery volume, they don't work. Or even you're sitting there with the volume control, it's like off, it's just on, but it's the actual amp's not working properly. It needs to have some volume in it to actually operate, so you can, actually gets to heat up and stuff. Whereas something like this does run really quietly. So I do like this. That's why I'm keeping it. It's fun. It's very small. This is, to me, isn't as useful for going camping or at downloads as something like this though, because something like this, I wouldn't want someone to, if someone pinched it or you spilt a beer on it or you stood on it or something like that, you go, well, that's a shame. Whereas something like this, you go, oh no, but it's a bit good. Yeah, I kind of don't want this to get wet if it get rained on or something, because you're losing 40 or 50 quid or whatever it is they cost. I can't remember. It was a gift from my girlfriend. So I do like this. If we keep going on, we're still on my amps. These are ones I've owned. Well, I'll sell this one. I'm going to price all these depending on how good I think they are in a run. So I'll sell this one. This one, I'm still sitting there thinking it could be handy, and if I'm only going to get a £5 or a tenner for it, it's like, well, I kind of like the idea of having a wee amp lying about anyway. Everyone should have something like this. If you've only got one amp, and you've got pals coming over or whatever, you just want something to take to a party or something like this, you know, you can't really go wrong just having something. Sounds in it is not exactly groundbreaking, but it's enough. Moving on to, that's another one of mine. I got this in a trade and ended up keeping it. This is a Line 6 micro spider. The reason I like this is this one also runs on batteries, and it's a much beefier amp than either of the other two ones. This is like a sort of a proper, look at the depth of it, kind of like a copy of a Roland Cube type thing. This has got modelling and stuff in it as well. So I've done a review of this, so if you look back you can see a review of this and what I reckon. I did a review, a video where I tried to use the settings on this to match my favourite 3 sounds that I normally play through, which was like sort of clean and then a sort of slightly distorted and then a pretty distorted rap pedal type sound to try and get the 3 sounds out of this, and it did pretty damn well. The big difference is because it's battery operated, I could be playing on a beach playing through this, which it doesn't matter, you know, unless you took a generator and stuff, you're never going to be able to take all that stuff. So there's that. Going on to, this is a sort of old fashioned, I suppose. This is a trans tube PV Rage 158, which is quite a bit bigger than those other ones. But again, these are the sort of amps I would expect someone with a guitar like this to be looking at. You know, you don't want to be spending, if you've got £100 to spend, you know, spend the bulk of it on getting a decent guitar, or basically just buy that guitar and then blow. These things aren't expensive. They probably are new, but I'm talking second hand now. Yeah, so I'll run through that. This has got a gain channel, a bit more of an EQ on it, and just a physically bigger speaker. And physically bigger speakers sound better than small speakers. It's just the law of the world that bigger is better, pretty much. Yes, that's pretty good. So this is one I got up a pal the other day. This is a Behringer one, which is quite thin actually. This is a 15 watt GM 108, and this one has like a wee distortion modelling pedal thing built in. It says on the front, it's what does it say? True analog modelling amplifier. So this is basically a similar sort of thing. You get your standard amp, gain, volume, and a 3-band EQ, but this has got three-way switches to give you Marshall and California, British, or Tweed, which I think is Mesa Boogie, Marshall, or Fender. The middle switch is hot, high gain, and clean. It's just like 3 levels of distortion, even though you've got a dial to change that in. And then the last one's slightly different EQs for different. So there's a wee bit of fidgeting about to do with that. But this one I've been playing through a little bit. It seems to be pretty good. Coming up for sale as well. Next in the list of amps I'm going to do is this custom one, which is it's quite an old school looking amp, but it's quite modern, I think. It's got a blue light bulb on it. So this one, I'd have to say I quite like this one. This one seems a bit more grown up. I don't know how much these cost new. Second hand again. All these amps you can kind of sort of pick up. Well, maybe not the Black Star, but the other, you know, you're talking, you know, sub 40 quid second hand anyway. This one I was quite surprised with, and then we go to the last one of my small amp section is a Black Star ID Core 10 V2, and this is, as you can see, a bigger version of this. So I'm quite looking forward to seeing what this sounds like. This has got a bit more advanced stuff on it. It's got like effects and all these things. That's another thing with it. Effects, you can get them built into modern amps. You don't generally tend to get them on older ones. I mean, this one, the wee Line 6 has all the effects on it. I wouldn't have said it was necessarily 100% you need to have effects, but because I mean, I've got pedals on the floor if I ever really want effects, which I rarely use. But if you're talking about spending 100 quid on a guitar and an amp, you know, you don't really want to be blowing 50 quid on a distortion pedal or 50 quid on a delay or something like that. So just having the option of having it sitting there, or maybe get one of these, the Digitech make them, you know, the sort of small multi-effects units that maybe about 40 quid. But even then, that's 40 quid, which I would be tempted to spend £40 and getting a bigger amp rather than buying effects pedals. So yeah, so I don't know whether I'll actually upload this video. As I said, I've tried to do a few earlier on, and it just seemed to not really cover very much. I mean, that's 25 minutes of just talking about wee shitty amps and talking about a video I'm going to do that I've not even done yet. So if you're after a wee amp, I'm selling about 5 or 6 of them or something like that, because there's really no point. I mean, I'm not. A lot of people are mad into guitars and have, like, 10 guitars and 10 amps. I've got more than 10 guitars, quite a lot more than 10 guitars, but I don't have 10 amps. Well, if you include all these ones on the floor, I probably do, but amp wise, I've got my Laney, which is the one I use for in the house, which is a 15 watt tube amp, lovely, about 400 quid, something like that, new. The Sovtech, which is it's basically a JCM 800 Marshall. I've got a 3x12 cabinet, which I run either one of them through, even though the Laney does have a speaker in it. Got a stupidly oversized Marshall bass amp I bought when I was 18, because I wanted a 6 foot high amp. And then I've got a more sensible Marshall bass amp, which is sort of kind of the same as that, apart from a smaller, more portable version, which I bought for playing in the house. Not actually looking at the advert properly and realising that it's pretty much the same size as one of these. But because that's 400 watt and that's 150 on that one, you can actually turn it on in the house, whereas that one just makes your brain shake. It's also got a cooling fan in it, which is annoyingly noisy. Obviously, if you're playing a 400 watt bass amp on a stage, you can't hear that fan, but if you're sitting watching telly on the sort of volume I'm talking at just now, it's just there. So that's why I don't use that in the house. That's why I bought this one, which does go down to decent volumes. So I hope that wasn't too much gibberish. I'm going to try and do a video on one of these now, and I think I'll probably do the videos using this guitar. Just have done a demo of this guitar. If you look it up, as I said before, look up Yamaha on my page, but on my YouTube. But bearing in mind that although I'm playing a budget, what I'm saying is the best cheap guitar you can get, I'm playing it through £400 with an amp, which if you're not going to do, if you've got a £100 guitar, you're not going to have a £400 amp, you're going to have a £100 guitar with a 50 quid amp or something like that. So that's why I'm going to use this guitar for these. Vice versa, I could be using the Falcon and the West Tour and stuff to try out a 10 watt practice amp, and it's like the same way around. If you're going to have a £500 guitar, you're going to have an amp that costs more than 50 quid, I would think. But I mean, you could obviously argue the point that something like that, or any of the three you can see behind me, are a better guitar than this, so they will sound slightly better going into this. Well, maybe not this. To be honest, I think you could put any guitar into this, it'll sound exactly the same. It's kind of got one sound. So hopefully this isn't too much gibberish. I can't decide whether I can be bothered actually uploading this or not, or whether I just leave it. I might leave it unlisted and then decide what to do later. Anyway, rock on.